Welcome to Design a Roller Coaster with Engineering with Paper. My name is Paula Frisch. I am a co-creator of Engineering with Paper project packets, and I'm the assistant director of Dazzling Discoveries STEM Education Center based in New York City. And I'm so excited to be building with you today. We're going to get hands-on, start building in just a minute. So I want to make sure everybody has the supplies that they need. We're going to need tape, scissors, some markers for decorating, and paper. So gather your supplies. We can use just regular, happens to be nice colors, but we can use just regular scrap paper, white copy paper from the printer. We're going to need about 5 sheets of paper, and whatever kind of scissors are comfortable for you, whatever size fits your hand. Markers for decorating, and tape. So I'm using masking tape because it's really easy to rip by hand. I don't have to use a scissor to cut it. So I'm using masking tape. I recommend masking tape, but you use whatever you have. If you have Scotch tape with the little dispenser that cuts it, that's really helpful. If you're using packing tape, which is the really thick, clear one, it really helps to cut smaller pieces. And we'll talk about how to prep the tape in just a minute. So gather your supplies. Again, that's paper and tape, scissors, markers, and we will get started. So while you are gathering your supplies, I'm going to show you an example of what we'll be building. So here's one version. Everything that we do shows different ways of doing a lot of different things. So with a roller coaster, there's unlimited possibilities. So I'm going to be showing you some techniques and tricks for building a stable structure, stable support, building sturdy tracks, and building a base. But you can use these things in any combination. So as you can see in this example, there's 2 supports, and that's what we're going to be walking through today, building a roller coaster with 2 supports. You can expand, you can make it huge, you can make it 1 support. It's up to you. So it just helps to know some of these techniques. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So as you're gathering your supplies, let's do a test run. Hopefully this will start at the top, and I'll change the angle of my camera in just a minute. There we go. Change the angle so you'll be able to see it from above. There we go. So I'm going to show you how to make, it got stuck, how to make supports, how to make tracks, how to make a base. And I'm also going to show you some tricks for making a curved track. So let me put down the clipboard. So over here you can see I've curved the track around the support. So I'm going to show you some tricks, a few different ways to do that. Okay, and if you have any questions, type into the Q&A and I'll try to get to them as we go. Okay, ready to build? Great. I'm going to adjust my camera down so you can see my table instead of me. There we go. Okay, so the first part we are going to create is this tray at the base. And I've made it a tray with walls so that I can keep all the little balls. As you can see, I've made these balls out of paper. Gives me a place to keep them. And folding the paper on the sides helps make this whole thing a little more stable. It doesn't flop around so much. So actually, now that I've got it in this view, let's try it one more time. Test run. Here we go. And you're going to see as we go, we're going to be doing a lot of test runs. We're going to constantly test and adjust the roller coaster. Pretty fun to play with. Ooh, okay, we're ready to build. So we're going to start by making a tray with walls. And we do that by folding each edge of the paper in to make walls and unfolding. So I folded it about 1 inch, but it's up to you. If you fold a little less, the walls will be less high. If you fold a little deeper, the walls will be taller. So I'm folding all 4 sides and unfolding. And as you can see, creating these creases. And the fourth side. Okay, and so now those creases have made a rectangle inside of this sheet of paper. We're going to take a marker and mark each of these corners where the creases are intersecting. And we're going to make a line from that intersection to the edge of the paper. We're going to do that on all four. And the marker is just a way to make sure you know where you're cutting. So get your lines ready. Should look like that. And then we're going to cut on those lines. So these are short cuts, just to where the folds intersect. And we will fold these up in just a minute, and they will form walls. So this is a technique we use for a lot of different projects, making these trays. If you use a full sheet, obviously it makes this size of a tray, but you can also make trays with smaller rectangles. We use these to make furniture in paper houses. We use it to make the chassis of vehicles, to make paper cars, all kinds of things. Okay, so once you've cut, we're going to tape. Oh, and let me tell you about, there's a little trick for tape. So it really, really helps to have your tape already cut or ripped as you're building. So I'm going to take a long piece of tape and then I'm going to rip it into some smaller pieces and put it right on the edge of my table over here. So I'll give you an example. I'm just cutting small pieces and putting them, you can put them on a water bottle, you can put them on a plastic pencil case, put them on the edge of the table, wherever is easy for you to reach. It really helps to have this ready, because as you're building, all you need to do is grab your tape and start connecting your paper. It means you don't have to put your project down, lose your progress if you're holding on to something. So now we are taping each of these corners. So we're folding up the sides that you just cut, folding it up like a wall, and taping. We're going to do that on all four. And you should already start to see these are corners. So it goes from a flat sheet of paper to a tray with walls. We're going to tape the other two. With tape, always make sure to really, really press or squish the tape against the paper. Because tape works the best when all of its sticky surface is touching the paper or touching wherever you want it to stick to. So make sure that as you're taping, you don't just kind of drop it down. Because as you can see, that's not going to stick. Make sure you press the tape, really press the tape in. Okay, and there is our tray. Now we are ready for some supports. So that's going to be, that's going to be these sections. So these shapes where you can see a circle at the top, this is called a cylinder. And at the base of the cylinder, we are going to cut some flaps and fold them out to help make that cylinder more stable. And I'll show you that in just a minute. This is a great trick for all kinds of paper projects. So today we're building a roller coaster, but we can use all of these techniques in lots of different projects to build all kinds of things. So let's choose a different color. Let's do orange. Okay, we can set our tray aside for the moment. Now we are going to make our cylinders. So I'm going to rip a long piece of tape. I'm going to place the tape before, let me just show you what I'm going to do. Here's the flat sheet of paper. In just a minute, I'm going to curl it over, overlap the sides to make a cylinder. But it really helps to have the tape in place ahead of time, because otherwise I would have to reach over and I might lose the shape I'm trying to make. So I'm going to place the tape. I'm going to do it along the shorter side of the paper. As you can see, there's a short side and a long side. So I want mine to be the shorter height. If you want your cylinder to be the longer height, then you would put your tape on the longer side. But I'm going to put it on the shorter side, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. So I'm placing the tape with some of the sticky part touching the paper. Flip it over, and some of the sticky part of the tape sticking out. And that's how we need it to be. So get your tape in place, and then roll your paper over and overlap the sides. So I have chosen to do the short side because it will be a wider cylinder and it lets me put my hand into, hello, you can see my fingers. It lets me put my hand into the cylinder, which makes it much easier to press the tape to make sure it's really secure. And then as I'm building, it will make it easier for me to press the track, to tape the track to the side of the cylinder. So that's why I've done it this way. You want your cylinder to be taller, and in this example, they are taller. So in this example, I used the long side of the cylinder, but I can't get my hand very far in. So this is a good way to start for your first roller coaster. It'll help to be able to fit your hand in there. So make sure you can fit your own hand. Okay, so there's our cylinder, one support. As you can see, not super stable. So we are going to cut flaps that will give us a wider base to make it more stable, but it will also, here's my tray, it will also give us feet. It'll give us feet that we can tape down to the tray. So that will be a much more sturdy connection than just taping the cylinder, the side of the cylinder to the tray. So let's do that together now. Take your scissors. We're going to go around just one side of the cylinder. We're going to leave this one as is. And we're going to just make short cuts. All the way around, maybe about every inch or so. And the wider the cylinder, the more cuts you're going to be making. There we go. Here are the flaps. And then we're going to fold them out like feet. Think of how your feet stick out from your body. These feet also stick out from the base of the cylinder. So here we go, folding them out. There's our support. So now we can tape that support into our tray. And then we're going to repeat. We're going to make a second cylinder support and tape it into the other side of the tray. Taking this down. Pressing the tape. Okay, I'm going to make my other support with another color. This time I'll make it I'll use the longer side of the paper. Taking a long piece of tape, placing it along the edge of the paper, with some of the sticky side up. And then I'm going to roll, since this will be a narrower cylinder, just roll it. Roll it over the tape, and then make sure to press the tape in. And we're going to cut our flaps and fold them out. Okay, and we can attach it to our tray. And I taped this one in before I made this one, but now that I'm looking at it, I probably should have waited and taped both of them together. So that's what happens as you're building. Make adjustments. I'm going to constantly be testing these roller coasters and see what needs to be improved, what needs to be moved a little bit. That is all part of the fun. So taping the flaps, making sure this feels stable, feels attached. Okay, I'm ready for my trays. So I'm going to set this aside for a minute. I'm going to take a new piece of paper. Let's see, let's do yellow. In order to make the tracks, I need some long, narrow strips. So I'm going to do that by folding the paper, the long side to the long side. And again, just like the cylinder, I've decided to do it the long way. You could also do it the short way. You would get shorter tracks that are a little wider. But I want to do longer tracks for now. So I'm folding the long side of the paper to the long side of the paper. And then I'm going to fold again, because actually what I want is to measure out 4 equal sections. So I'm folding in half and then in half again. And look what happens when we unfold. There we go, 4 equal sections. So follow these crease lines and cut. These are going to become our tracks. And again, if you want your tracks to be a little wider and shorter, then you would do that same thing, but folding the paper in half, short side to short side, and then in half again, rather than folding the long side to the long side, which is what I just did here. Okay, there's our 4 equal rectangles. And now I'm going to take a look at your paper. So this paper is pretty floppy, right? It doesn't feel sturdy enough yet. I'm going to show you a trick to make this floppy paper a lot more sturdy. And it's really, really simple. We're just going to fold the sides up to make walls. So fold each of the long edges of the paper. That's one side. And folding the other side. I'm going to have 2 walls. And then in the middle, I'm going to have a flat roadway. So there we go. That's the track. And now, if you wave that around, not so floppy, right? It's pretty amazing how paper can be so sturdy if you just fold it, tape it. It makes all the difference. So there we go. There's our track. Let me show you what that looks like from the side. So you have the walls, and then we'll have this center roadway. Okay, so let's do that with all 4 of these pieces. Turn them into tracks. Then we'll have them ready once we start building. And we're going to be trimming these so we can adjust them. We might not need them all to be so long, but at least we'll have them ready to go and ready to measure as we build. And here's our 4th track. Okay, there we go. So we've got our tracks. We've got our supports in base. And I'm going to take a minute right now and get some tape ready because I'm going to need a bunch of tape as I attach these tracks to the supports. So take a minute now and rip or cut maybe 4 or 6 pieces of tape. I'm putting them right here on the edge of my table, which I realize is not in the video, but that's okay. So you find a spot that is convenient for you that you can easily reach your tape as you go. Okay. Hope you're getting your tape ready. We're going to use these tracks kind of like a slide from one support to the other. So a really important thing about roller coasters is how they're supported. And that's why we did the support first. And then comes the tracks. So we're going to be attaching from one support to the other. We're going to find a way to curve it around. And we're going to decide how we want it to end. Maybe you want your track to come out of the tray and end over here, and you can make another small tray. Use the same shape, make a tray to catch the ball. It's up to you. Really unlimited possibilities. All right, let's get a good view here. So I'm going to take a piece of tape and place it on the wall of my track. You see that? There we go. So I put my tape in place, again, just like with the cylinder. It really helps with the flow of building to put your tape, for some things, to put your tape ahead of time so that when you get to the spot that you want to put it, all you have to do is just press it. So I want to put it at the top of my taller support. What I recommend you do, start at the top with your roller coaster. So there we go, I've taped it there. And now I can see, where do I want this to go? I can adjust it. So how steep do I want this roller coaster to be at this spot? I usually think about what would be comfortable if I were a person on a slide. How steep would I want it? So I want it steep enough to be fun, but not too steep that I would be scared of flying off. So it's the same thing for the paper ball. We don't want it to fly off. We want to make it steep enough that it rolls easily, not steep enough that it flies off. Okay, and I'm just going to show you, let's make a ball, because I was about to test, but we need to make a paper ball together. So take a scrap piece of paper and cut a rectangle, pretty small rectangle. It's smaller, about the size of the palm of your hand. So if you're a kid, the palm of your hand is going to be smaller than my palm. You want it about that size. And then we're just going to crumple it up as tight as you can. You can also use supplies that you have at home. So if you have a bead or a toy that has a small round part, or peppercorn if you're in the kitchen. You can also make a ball out of tape. You can make a ball out of aluminum foil. Lots of possibilities. So here's my paper ball. Make sure you really squish it. We want it to be nice and tight. That will help make it round. Okay, so I can already see, I'm about to test the ball. I know that this reaches farther than the tray. So I know my ball is going to go flying off the end. I'm going to put my hand there just to show you what's happening. Whoop, it still jumped. So there we go. There's the first section of our roller coaster. And now we're going to turn it around this support. So the first way that I'm going to make a turn is simply to overlap one track with the other. As you can see right now, this track is going too far. So I'm going to have to trim this track. I'm going to trim it, and I'm going to have the ball just fall into the track below it, which means I'm not going to connect these two tracks. So that's one way to make a curve. So I'm going to place my tape. Put my tape on the track, and I'm going to attach it on an angle. Make sure every time that you attach a track, it's always on a little bit of a downhill. That will keep the ball rolling. So I've attached that, and now it's easier for me to make an adjustment. So I can see how much of this track is overlapping, and I'm going to cutting a little bit off. And now I can adjust it. So I think I want a little more tape right here to hold it in place. So as you go, keep observing what's happening, what you think is going to happen, and adjust. Okay, so I can still see this is overlapping a little too much. I'm going to cut a little more. Always recommend cut just a little bit at a time, or use your marker and make a line where you're going to cut, just like we did when we made the paper tray, so that you can see before you cut where you want to go. Okay, let's test this out. We're going to start at the top. Again, I'm going to hold my hand over here to catch the ball. Let's see what happens. So it fell off the back there, right? Oh, well, that worked that time. Okay, so that tells me I'm going to need to strengthen this in some way. So maybe I'll put a little wall. For now, I'm going to keep building so I get around to the other side. And then I'm going to go back and see if it happens again and see what I need to do. So in this case, I'm going to make a different kind of a curve. And I'm going to show you on another piece of paper. So one way to make a curve is to make some cuts in the tray. I'm sorry, in the track. So we do that. This is a sample track from another project. Draw 3 lines from one of the walls, one of the crease walls. 3 lines from the crease wall, 1, all the way to the other edge, 2 and 3. So as you can see, my lines are not going all the way across. They're not going across this wall, but they are going across this wall or across this fold. Then we're going to cut. I really recommend drawing the lines before you cut. So there we go. And already, just by moving your paper, you can already see that it's much easier to curve it. It's already starting to curve. So then you just overlap one at a time. This is one of many, many ways of making a corner or making a curve. Overlapping the next, putting the tape, and overlapping the last, and putting the tape in place to hold it. So as you can see, that's a pretty sharp curve, but you can use that same technique to adjust and make it whatever angle you want. Okay, so let's do that on this track over here. I'm going to draw my lines. I want it to curve around. I'm just going to do this as a, there we go. Okay. Can you see that? I'm going to draw my lines, and then I'm going to cut. And I'm going to tape as I go, curving around. And I am out of tape. Maybe you are too. So take a minute right now, prep your tape. I'm going to get 6 pieces ready. Okay. So I'm now going to use those flaps that I just cut and tape each one. Tape the first down so I can control the curve. Tape the next one and the next one. And we're just doing this today in about 40 minutes or less. So that's pretty quick. So make sure as you're going that you take your time. There's no rush. You can pause this video, come back to it. So there's our curve. And now I want to make sure that when I tape this, I tape it on a downward slope so that the ball doesn't get stuck or stop moving. So I'm placing my tape and pressing it against, and this is one of those times that putting your hand in really helps. So I put my hand in so that I can press against it. Okay, and there we go. So now I'm going to test the whole thing again, because as you can see, I made that adjustment. I attached that piece, but now this section is doing something different than it was doing before. So let's give it a test run. What's a good angle? Here we go. But I can already see this is sticking out, going farther than the track below it, but let's test it. There it goes, actually. Okay, so it got a little stuck right there. I'm gonna look closely at what's happening. I'm gonna adjust and make it not so steep going down, because I think that was pulling on the track a little too much. And there we go. So I'm gonna cut over here, cut my track a little more. And I'm going to show you one more trick before we switch to Q&A, which will be in just a minute. Oh, I see someone on the chat. It is amazing what paper can do. Yes, just by folding and attaching in different ways, you can make almost anything. We make cars, we make houses, we make creatures, puppets, all kinds of projects. So I want to just show you, by cutting a small rectangle and attaching, you can make a kind of a wall or a barrier. So if your ball is going too high as it comes down a slope, attaching another piece as a wall can really help. So you could do that at a corner. You can do that along the edge of the wall. So I'm going to attach that. And then I'm going to do another test run and see how it goes. Also try some different size balls. So this is pretty small. You can try it a little bigger, try it a little smaller. How do those balls roll differently, different speeds as they go down your roller coaster? Okay, let's try this out. Oh, it's getting stuck there. So I'm gonna adjust a little bit more. I want this track to be a little bit more of a slope, because I think what was happening is this track was too straight. It was too flat. And so the ball did not have enough momentum. Okay, I'm gonna adjust a little more. I've got a little more of a slope. And I'm taping, retaping, moving around the part that I've taped. Let's try it again. Oh, it still got stuck there. So I think what I'm gonna do this time is attach this end of the track to this a little bit more to kind of hold it up. And another thing you can do, especially if you have these little scraps, you can use a little strip like this to, as kind of a connector. So you could tape it to this track and then tape it to this track. And it's kind of a way to attach them to each other. There we go. And we can start on the Q&A as I'm playing around with this. I think you get the point here. There's different ways of doing curves, different ways of doing cylinders, but all of these methods can help you to create your own version of a paper roller coaster. I hope you had fun. Okay, I'm seeing in the chat, I'm ready for Q&A. Just going to attach this, and let's do one more test run. Whoop, oh no, that jumped off the back. There we go, so that worked. Okay, and again, as you go, there's no rush, keep testing. And let's see, okay, we have a question. Oh, great, thank you so much. Can you do this with more than 2 cylinders? Absolutely. Yeah. So you can do it with fewer. You can do it with 1 cylinder if you want it to be really compact, but you can spread this out. I really recommend that the track be attached to the side of the cylinder. So when we do this with students, often the inclination is to attach a track to the top, and that gets really tricky to get to a next step. So I highly recommend, if you're doing this with students or with your own kids, that you teach attaching the track to the side of the supports, because then you can expand as much as you want. So you could have another support here, and you have a lot more flexibility, and it's much more intuitive for how to attach and to keep building. You're attaching to the side. So you can do this with as many cylinders as you want. You can have it expand through your classroom, through your home. You can also use rectangular prisms instead of cylinders. So it's a really flexible project. We actually have a roller coaster packet that we sell on our website, Engineering with Paper, along with a bunch of free downloads of different projects. So we teach different ways of making tracks, making this curve, making another corner, just folding to make the straight track. So yeah, have fun, and it's a very flexible project. Any other questions? I'll keep testing as I go. Okay, it's working. And so you can also make a smaller tray to catch the ball at the bottom. You can turn this into a chain reaction. That's a project that we do with a lot of students, is using these cylinders but smaller. And you can have them in a line, kind of domino effect, and have the ball come down and hit the cylinders and have the cylinders fall over. So turning this into the beginning of a bigger contraption or Rube Goldberg machine. It's really unlimited possibilities. So check out our roller coaster packet, check out our other Engineering with Paper project packets. That's at engineeringwithpaper.com. And our education center is Dazzling Discoveries. And thanks so much for joining me. It was really fun building with you.